So welcome all. This is Atlanta Solar Zen Center, fourth Thursday advanced workshop, which is June 29th.
26.
26th, I'm ahead of myself.
Mhm.
So tonight, the fourth Thursday, we take up chanting and alternatively walking meditation. Chanting is, sometimes people react poorly to the chanting. People come from Catholicism, they come in where black robe chanting in deep go their voices. I think we're hopefully something. But those of you who are in residence here and been here long enough may be familiar with this book. Picture of Dogen Zenji on the cover. It's our Soto Zen service book. I'm a graphic designer by training, as well as training in industrial design. This is a book that we offer everybody. Can order one. We'll send them a book to their affiliate center. So it has all the Soto Zen liturgy, table of contents. It starts with India, with the Heart Sutra, which was out of China, and then the Japanese version of the Heart Sutra. And it goes into various chants from India, and it goes to China, starting with Bodhidharma. We have three major chants in China. The Thinking Ming, Trust in Mind, Sandakai, or Harmony of Sameness and Difference, and Upiyogamai, Perfect New Samadhi. But ironically, about 100 years apart. First one was around 600, the second around 800, and the third around 900. Then going into Japan, with mostly based on Master Dogen's teaching, with several more chants. So I wanted to say something about the liturgy, about the reason I did this design project, the first called collateral design. Um, I was exposed to some of this in Chicago. My training there with Matsuoka Roshi. We did the Heart Sutra, and we would do the Heart Sutra in Japanese, so the Hanya Shingyo, before and after each sitting period. We did, I think, the English in the beginning, if I remember correctly, and the Japanese at the end, with the full service. Nowadays, most places don't chant before the sitting; they chant at the end. So wherever you go, you can expect to have some brief introduction in the beginning. It's usually silent, where the priest comes in and bows and goes to the seat. San Francisco, there's a lot of clanging of bells and big drums, and it goes on forever. It goes on for like 15, 20 minutes. And there's a big drum. I can't remember the name of the Japanese name of the huge drum. You've all seen it on the where you want the drum. And toward the end, you hear the drum will boom. And after a while, you think that's got to be the last drum, but it just keeps going on. And meanwhile, it's 5, 6 in the morning, and you're in San Francisco, so you can hear all the traffic sound coming up outside. So the lead in town drumming and so forth, calling everybody to the Zendo. It's a large building. It's like a 3 or 4 story building where everybody lives, and starts to blend in with the sound of the traffic coming together outside, which I found kind of charming. I recorded it when I was there. I don't know how to do the recording. So the reason I did this was what we call collateral design, corporate identity. Um, Wanted to establish where I was exposed to this other than Matsuoka Roshi in Chicago. We have this single sheet handed out, which I have on file. If you ever want to take a look at the original, we had the calligraphy on the one line, and the next line was the phonetic pronunciation of the calligraphy. The third line was the English they're connected vertically like this. So if you read the English, it didn't make any sense. It was all out of order because the Japanese syntax doesn't follow English syntax. And it's an interesting document to look at. And going to Austin, San Francisco, Austin Zen Center, 2007 for a 90-day ongo. Mainly what Barbara Irving Cohen, since there was training in, there was the forms, the protocols, all this kind of stuff. And they had a big book of their sutra book with probably 3-inch binder. And I went through it and looked at it while I was there. And went to Kokoan in Hawaii and went to a lot of different centers around the country and around the world. And where possible, I would collect their and bring them home with me. Their dog's breakfast. It's just a myth. Just Xeroxes of copies of things and cleanly redundant instead of you're going to chant the same chant like the environment opening verse, comma closing verse, something like that. They would repeat. We'd have always execute the poem. So I condensed it down into one set of graphically designed for scanning and reading. It's all 18-point type, not all 18, but part that you have to read. It's all centered and phrased so that the eye scans down the middle. It's easy to scan and read. It's sort of designed for chanting, much like the libretto or lyric would be designed in music. It's, that's the reason we have this form instead of what you might find somewhere else. Steve Carr, when he was here, he color coded all these for the home practice manual for Monday. Yes, I'll keep this through Monday feature commits. It's easy to find if you have to get it all. So what I'd like to do today is like take us through the some of these plants. Some of them get to be pretty long, so I don't think there's any way we could do the whole liturgy the one sitting here. And that's really is only part of what they do in Japan. When I was there at the ASZC, you noticed how many times we chanted during the different things that were done. Inquiring is industry, how it's all set up. And from what I can tell, it probably is very traditional. Something they've inherited for hundreds of years, what they can't win, and so forth. The main takeaway, I think, from this is these are not devotional, they're not prayer, they're not essentially religious in nature, they're more teaching. And the reason we chant them over and over again is like anything else you're trying to learn, repetition counts. The more repetition you go through, the more second nature it becomes. And then once you start memorizing them, you start hearing what the meaning a little differently, like the assimilation of any other kind of information. So when I was trying to learn to memorize the Hanyu Shingo Japanese, it's just a long train of nonsense syllables. I mean, I don't know what they mean. So I found myself with the aid of Sensei Carr, it's actually Congo actually put this together, first English version, we think it's Congo. I would know what I was chanting in English. I was chanting in Japanese, but I would know what it meant in English. That's the only way of finding copy where I could chant through the whole of the Heart Sutra, which, by the way, is very brief. It's probably 2/3 the length of an English version. English is much longer language. Japanese is very monosyllabic. So you have one syllable, double syllable in the same beat, one syllable, double syllable, and so forth. So actually, when we chanted in English, we kind of forced the English, which has more of an pentameter type of rhythm to it, kind of force that into monosyllabic single beat. So it's a little weird. So any questions? No? Those of you who are here in residence have a chance to study this and practice it. If you intend to lead a group someday, This is not, in my view, the most important part of what we do. This is like kind of third. It's a form of Sangha practice, community practice. Chanting helps cohere the Sangha, helps everybody sort of get on the same page. If you go to one of our longer retreats at the watershed, or sometimes we do it here, the very first day we chant the Heart Sutra. They get very ragged. The voices are all over the place in the temple and everything. But by the end of the 4 or 5 day retreat, everybody's chanting as with one voice. There was no rehearsal, no special attempt to make that happen. It just naturally happens. They say in a football stadium, for instance, somebody starts yelling something out, and somebody else starts yelling at whatever it happens to be, the chanting something, goal braves or whatever it happens to be. The whole stadium tends to synchronize. First, it's really all of itself. But gradually, it's more and more synchronized. So the whole stadium is one voice. So it's a natural human tendency. And I think the beginning of music and the beginning of, I don't know what you'd call it, cultural life probably has a lot to do with the effect that chanting has on us as individuals and as a group. Orthoparoki will always say, chant with your ears, not with your mouth. By that, I think he meant to listen to the others, blend in, follow what they're doing. And if you want to memorize these, for instance, when we're chanting, what you want to do is close your eyes once in a while or look away from the page instead of reading. See if you actually already know what's coming. And if you listen to the other voices, they give you the clues. Remember in the beginning in India, none of this was written down. So you went there and there were 300 monks and nuns chanting out in the open field, and you would join in and chant in Pali, whatever the language, originally Pali, they were chanting in. And that's the only way you could hear them, these teachings, and that's the only way you could learn them. So I'm going to suggest now that we turn the mic, switch the mics, and let's start with the first speaker in English of Buddha, the one we're most familiar with.
You just need to turn that off. Right.
Yeah, you turn that mic off and then the other. I think it turns itself on. You can check the mic and see, if it's already reverted to codec or already reverted to, should revert to default to codec.
Down at the bottom left, under audio, click that arrow.
Yeah. See, just toggle codec up above.
Yeah, it's already on.
Yeah.
It's supposed to default, but it's always a good idea to check it.
Well, there's two that say codec. One says line USB audio codec.
Whichever one it defaults to. Sure,
Okay.
it's not the right one. Okay, so those that have been here for a while know that priest is coming in doing vows and things of that nature. So a lot of the signaling here with the gong and so forth between the Doan and the Doshi. And again, I think these are not of utmost importance. Buddha practice, meditation is the first. Dharma study, Dharma understanding is second. Sangha is third. And again, I think all of these are in the category of Sangha practice. The Heart Sutra is the only one which leads off with 3 big gongs. The others, at least the way I was trained, one big gong at the end of the title. The Heart Sutra is very special. We could talk a little bit more about its provenance and why it is most commonly chanted all over the world. So we'll begin with these signals, which are again monastic type signals with the priest coming in. treasure dogs. All my past and harmful karma, born from beginningless greed, hate, and illusion, through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. All my past and harmful karma, born from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. All my past and harmful karma, born from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. I take refuge in Buddha, I take refuge in Dharma, I take refuge in Sangha, I take refuge in Buddha, the fully awakened one. I take refuge in Dharma, the compassionate teaching. I take refuge in Sangha, the harmonious community. I have completely taken refuge in Buddha. I have completely taken refuge in Dharma. I have completely taken refuge in Sangha. These mark the priest coming to the altar and bowing. Heart of great perfect wisdom, Sutra. Practicing Prajna Paramita. So that all my aggregates are empty, thus relieve all suffering. Shariputra form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Form itself is emptiness. Emptiness itself form. Sensations, perceptions, formations, and consciousness are also like this. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked by emptiness. They neither arise nor cease, are neither defiled nor pure, neither increase nor decrease. Therefore, given emptiness, there is no form, no sensation, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body,
universally to all, so that we together with all beings realize the Buddha way. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Maharajna, Paramita. We all do prostration bows again, 3 bows. And when we're doing the full service with the doshi, we on the exit bells bow to the altar, bow across to the Dharma, Buddha Dharma, and to the Sangha. So when doing this alone, if you're wanting to extend your practice to embrace this, you can follow that to whatever degree you want. Let's switch mics back again and do a little bit more dialogue about this.
Hold on. Enter Bluetooth.
Something that's right. Actually,
Was that what?
yeah, we're. Let me point out a couple of things here for you. Get multiple Hiroshi also. And he said, first of all, they become a little more chant in Champahanya Shingo and Sino-Japanese text. That it doesn't matter if you understand what you're chanting or not, but the true meaning of the chanting is the concrete chanting itself. So in some of these, like gate gate paragate paratam gate bodhisattva, they mean that quite literally. The reason they don't typically translate those is the sound themselves are considered to have the ability to transport you to the other shore, so to speak, like a spell. Gate gate paragate paratam gate bodhisattva, the original sound. It means something like someone going to the other shore or paying the other shore. Enlightenment accomplished. So Bodhisattva, Bodhi means enlightenment. So we don't want to get too caught up in or bogged down in the literal meaning of the chants that we do. But chanting, I think, helps us a little bit to focus on the content. Because as I said, these are not really meant to be devotional, simply worshipful, something like that. They're not praying for guidance, and not praying for benefits in our life or anything like that. So it is important that we understand what these teachings are saying. According to Red Pine, Bill Porter, who wrote a book on the Heart Sutra, which you might want to read, that we may have a copy in the library. This version of the Heart Sutra was published around 900, so it would be about 100 years after Ozan's, Kashyap Samadhi in China. And it was published for the very reason that Buddhism had taken turn or gone off in the ditch on the side of intellectualism. Erudition, memorization, quoting, usual kind of scholarly pursuits. And apparently some group of monks got together to publish this in this form to make the point that of emptiness, that was basically a testament to emptiness. What emptiness means is that everything is impermanent, everything is insubstantial, everything is imperfect, and so forth. So their point was that Buddha meant that to apply to his own teaching. We're not to reify his teaching. Buddha had no intention trying to codify or concretize the teaching it's a living teaching, the living experience of what this is pointing at, the emptiness in your own experience that this is pointing at is the only important message here. And of course, science of the times, the senses, the skandhas, the five skandhas were a way of looking at the life of a sentient being, divided basically into form, feeling, thought, impulse, consciousness. So those are all, thank you, those are all models, the Four Noble Truths, all that. So, models, as I said, are never perfect, but they're useful. The other thing I simply said is in chanting, there should just be one long stream of sound, with the punctuation being the confidence and so forth. So it's like no sight, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sight, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch. Just one continuous sound coming out. So as if you're humming. Mm, make it a little more. You'll find the Japanese Sino-Japanese to be a little more like the Pali. It's more Latin. It has more vowel endings of words. So if you, for instance, if you do the refuge verse, I take refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. When we do that in Pali, it's Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami, Buddham Saranam Dhammam Sangham. Familiar Buddha Dhamma Sangha in Sanskrit. The Pali thing was even more melodious. I think a lot of languages pre-literate, I guess you would call it, or before we had the written word and before we had the written versions of these were probably mostly recitation, public. We know even the Greek emphasized publishing it like sounding something in the public so people can listen to you. Like famous story, the guy went down the ocean and put pebbles in his mouth and the practice fighting had trouble taught with mouthful of pebbles. So it's stronger, more articulate. The publishing was literally public speaking in those days before the written language became predominant. When we do this, we're actually kind of going back in time, back in media, back to an earlier form. So next, let's switch the mics again and let's turn to the. I think it's
I find it very beautiful myself. Again, very much fewer syllables. I even counted them up once. I can't remember what the count was. But it's obviously much, much more condensed. You can just look at it on the page and look at the English on the page, and you can see how many more syllables and words are involved.
Which one did you say?
See?
Which one did you say?
It should be, it's the Hanya Shingyo, it should be up front.
Page 6.
We could do the whole service. It's a bit, I'm not even sure it's in that book. Is the whole service in Japanese in there? Yeah. No, just the tail end of it, okay. So we'll start with the title, Makahanya Haramita Shingyo. And the pronunciation in Japanese is syllables, the vowels are basically always the same. A is flat. Most of them are flat. I is mita, hara, mita, flat. Some people pronounce it mika, mita, like a long E. It's not quite that. It's a little flat. Shingyo. O is not quite O. It's more O. It's a flat O. And then when you have a diphthong like kanji zai, Z-A-I, that's pronounced like a long I. And you won't pick this up immediately, but if you just keep in mind that the vowels are always pronounced the same, you'll start to get it. And when you have a double syllable, like if you found shari, shi, shiki, fuli, ku, fuli, shiki, shiki is a double syllable in one beat. And typically the last I in that is not shiki, it's not an emphasized, it's shiki, it's more like an out breath. Soku, S-O-K-U, the U is like an out breath. Sokuze, shiki, and so forth. Pronunciation is really not important unless you're chanting with a bunch of Japanese. When you go to Japan, they chant these things at a very rapid pace. It's very hard to keep up with them. So we'll just start with the title, and I'll do the three gongs in the title. But if you're interested in hearing what the others sound like, I can chant them for you. You all come on this one. guys turn the switch mics and have a little dialogue around this one.
Power on. Enter Bluetooth.
I don't know, that must record, right? So what did you, anything, pick up anything here? Stood out for you? The G, sometimes people say move G and move down, down. G is always flat. It's just-
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
so where you said the words that were, I guess, in poly at the end of the
Mhm.
English version
Mhm.
aren't the
That's
same.
got to,
at
what I
the-
got to, Paulson got to,
Yeah,
that's Sanskrit, Buddhist function.
okay,
Here's gyate, gyate, hara so, gyate, boji, soaka, hara.
okay,
That would be phonetic pronunciation of the Sanskrit.
okay.
I don't understand why. Maybe you'd have to know what Japanese is the 20th language tonight. Um,
Poly thing is the refugees.
yeah,
The poly thing is the refugees. I'm sorry, no.
yeah, yeah. That's Paul. Yeah. So I find these Japanese more melodic, partly because of squeezing the English into the usual tempo for English. But if you take a quick look at the repentance of refugees, all my class and how in English, before the flow quickly, let me chant them for you in Japanese, and if you can chant along, I find them much more melodious, musical, in the technique. With Mark around. I think that'll be fine because it's mostly voice. There's a roll down here. You'll be able to hear some on. Right during that electronic. Those of you who are practicing to your ability to move the you can service the phone to before. What we're the roll down is we also do it if you come to the retreat at Watershed, we do it on a big block of wood with the hammers rolling out. And you do it here with your gongs. What it's doing is something close to, I think it's called a logarithm, where this is the way they show you in San Francisco. This is what you're replicating. Okay, like half and half and half. Some of you may know better than I do, but when you do that in your mind, it's like large circles, gradually smaller circles, smaller circles. Pretty smooth. It should be, a big job. When you're doing the drum in the beginning, it's like that as well. It's like you're exaggerating it visually, so you can see it. So your tempo. Typically, you're at tempo by the time you hit the first gong. At by the time you hit that gong, you're at tempo. And you stay at tempo. You don't want to drag. You don't want to slow down too much, and you don't want to rush too much. Rushing is better than dragging. I'll look at it. So it's like riding a good horse. And a good horse is always trying to run fast. Your job is to hold it back. So it's a little bit different from most musical disciplines. Here you're trying to starts out slow and picks up speed until it hits tempo and it basically stays that all the way through. And at the very end, you strike the gongs again, it starts slowing down and stop. I don't think there's any Western music play like that. No, typically the Western music. So let's do Pangémon, which is the events of the record, which I'm through coming. Pangémon, Ashaku Shozo Shoakugo, Ayumushi Tonjinchi, Jushin Kuishi Shosho, Isai ga ka, Isai ga Kankai San, Kankiemon is the refuge. Kankiemon, Namu Ki Butsu, Namu Ki Ho, Namu Ki So, Kie Butsu Bujo Son, Kie Ho Jin Son, Kie So Son, Kie Ho Pyo, Kie Ho Pyo, Kie So Pyo. You want to try those again?
Where are we since?
Hmm?
Where are we since then?
They're not in there?
I don't think
Oh,
so.
they're not in there. No wonder. I just think they're quite melodious with hearing. It's about 7:42. And that then, for ceremony here at the end of the service, the end of the service. In many places, you kneel. And for me, kneeling is almost impossible because physical issue. You don't have to kneel, but not to be really down, not standing. In San Francisco, if you cannot do prostration or are not comfortable doing prostration, you don't get up on the tatami mat. And people in the back can just bow, standing bow, other serene concepts, standing bow to always cross. If you're comfortable with prostration, then you're always invited to do prostration. And so, with the handle that San Francisco, you step up onto the tatami mat, but you're going to be doing prostration. So I think we have to take these protocols in kind of a big grain of salt. There's no exactly perfect right way to do them. Even if you go to AAJ and Sodaji, they don't do it the same way. So again, I think the personal level of why we would do this is so that we can hear these teachings, hear them again and again and again and again until finally we start to assimilate. That's why I think not relying on reading, you can continue to sort of wean yourself away from the printed page. You'll get into a deeper appreciation and a deeper apprehension of what they're saying. So the Metta Sutta is in the book, right? Should be Thursday. And which comes from India. And the Heart Sutta originally was a condensation of all of the teaching. So we consider it Indian, even though I don't even know if there are any stamped versions of it. The language is not. But Metta Sutta means loving kindness, and it's associated with a practice of bracing yourself first, bracing your friends and family and loved ones, and colleagues, workers, friends, associates, people you don't know, strangers, people you don't like, sort of an ever expanding circle of grace. The people who teach you that particular meditation, you don't usually do it. Contentment sutra, basically the same way as we do the heart sutra. I'm not really sure if this is entirely accurate. This is the way I was trained. Where we strike certain bells in the middle. That's when the dosage coming back to the altar offering. So I think the form of the bells and gong, drum, and so forth around these are meant to facilitate that public performance of a service by several players. In a large monastery, you would have one person be the drum would usually be on that side of the altar facing this way, another person striking the gong, another person reading the chant, the voice. It's also during the bows that go on the drum. I think belong to the Fukidos and the Kopios and the Cancel. So that's so that there's a change difference like we often get hung up on realization versus realization, but or so the three or the Kopio person establishing the caving comes up very very strong for everybody face it's so you have to forgive some of the anomalies that we run into from time to time in English. So let's try the Metta Sutta. Are we back on Codex? Nope.
Here we are.
Take a sip of tea, you might need it. This is not very long. And again, here, the title is chanted and the gong is struck only once at the end of the title. Metta Sutta. This is what may be accomplished by the one who is wise, who speaks the good and has obtained peace. One be strenuous, upright, and sincere, without pride, easily contented.
would be interesting to find out there's a way to do it on that. So, a couple content points. And I've given some long talks on the content, so we can come to great detail. A lot of my podcast, you can find a lot of this information. But you can see the very first section is all about personal, how you should not get caught up in this and so forth. And then as soon as you get down to the bottom of that, you've got great possessions and influence family. Now you're stepping into the social realm, to the social sphere. And nothing is meaner but lives would be proved. And then suddenly universal may all means be happy, therefore born to you. So again, this it's like you could say the biology of the time, the science of the time. Small or great, visible and invisible. What did they mean by invisible beings? So they were born to be born. Then after that, it switches back to the social level that no one deceive another. Despising anything in any state would be more like denying something its good nature. If you hate mosquitoes, cockroaches, or whatever it is, you're killing. That's considered killing. Denying something its good nature, which is in common with yours. And so there's a lot of messages here. And it kind of switches it up around personal to the social and back again. And cultivate an infinite goodwill toward the whole world. Very difficult to do. Right? And abandoning vain discussion. We don't abandon discussion. We abandon vain discussion. Chinese Shinshin says, waste no time in doubts and arguments that have nothing to do with this. In other words, this is the only important point to argue in the whole. And then promise living this way of living is best in one, abandoning vain discussion, having clear vision, free from sense appetites. When he realizes the way will never again know rebirth, the cycle of creation, suffering, or psychic purpose. So that can be interpreted as depending on a view of escaping the view of birth and death. But note, it does not say here one who realizes the way will never again know rebirth, period. Rebirth in the cycle of creation, suffering for ourselves and for others. So the backstory of Buddha was he had been reborn 6 or 7 times within his cognitive memory, or whatever. And that came back again for this last birth, and into the first sermon, which we would chant. So now there is no more. This is the last birth. Now there is no more coming. So he was reborn, according to this theory. This is all conjecture. That's why I have kind of thinking he was reborn, but as a bodhisattva. He's not reborn into the cycle of the creation of suffering or sense of fruit. In his early life, he made a lot of mistakes, and he did create a lot of suffering for himself and for others. So it's almost 8 o'clock. What's our usual schedule? We do 8 to 8:30 fitting. We break it up. I'd rather continue with chanting if you don't mind. I think get a little saturation. So the next one we have in the book for China. Fortunately, it's not since you maybe so long. But then Thunder Cry should be on Monday. So we want to mention again, and continuing was around fixing with that some songs that equip us successor, what going Bodhidharma successor. So coming earlier into that. Master Bodhidharma was the late 400s to the 500s. More than that. Waco we did Chinese successor. Some song with us successor. Memory chain. Sandokai is somewhere around 700. Yeah, you see drum. Let's try one without the drum. Let's just okay, okay. So that looks different. When you're practicing, we recommend just a main piano. You practice the left hand, practice the right hand, and you do together. If you chant with just striking the gong, and don't worry about the drum. Go through the whole thing, just striking the gong, and then chant just playing the drum, not striking the gong. If you do that enough times, and you get to where you can strike the gong without missing a beat of the drum. Typically, what happens is people see the gong coming up, get nervous, and they hit the gong, they don't hit the drum. This is so simple that it's not musical enough to fake it. You can't really fake it. I'll start out slow and pick up steam a little bit. So I'll just establish cadence. Lokai, the mind of the sage of you to trans from west to east on the title is the shower or the color. Northern Norse of their ancestors, the spiritual one shines clear in the light of streams flow on in the darkness, thing have things that surely do. For morning we're saying that is still hot and light and all the checks of the senses transposed and transposed in the body. Transposed in these pieces, place, and quality. Form sounds diff. Squeezing our orange darkness merges, refine that common words, faintness, distinguished and clear and murky phrases, the foreign return to the nature just as much alternates with harmonies with water. West truth is knowing, that's mercy, nothing sounds that was unself, and takes us for each thing, free thing, according to the songs that fortune can, and just share the lessons, revere and harmony, just speech in the light there is darkness, but don't take it as darkness in the light. There is light, but do see it as light and like a hopeless one another life, love, truth, and backward and walking each of the myriad things. Express them according to function and places of sin, and of the light box and other joining according with principle like error. Points meeting, hearing the words, understand the meaning. Do not establish standards of your not understanding the way before your eyes. How do you know? Path you walk, walking forward is not a matter far from near, but if you are confused, mountains and rivers mark your way. I respectfully urge you to study the history. That's your days and nights in vain. Nick was part of the Lavender band. We did Minnesota and Emory. What was that, 2024?
I think so. Yeah, 2 years ago.
And you can see the difference which it takes on in the musical. Okay, let's put back Mike. All right. Oh, we're still on. Okay, so one thing that you may start noticing, I'm not sure what it is, musically speaking, this technical term for it. But even though we're kind of syllable based on every beat, there's also kind of a more of a, I don't know what it would be like a counterpoint, sort of going through like the mind of the great sage of India is into the transmitted from west to east while human teeth are sharp or dull, the way has no. You start to feel that tempo after a while, and that helps a lot with the chanting because you have a bigger wave going behind the front wave, front wave, this tempo, but backgrounds like this. Is there a name for that in music? While you're doing this,
When you're playing on the drum, would you accent those?
I do sometimes. I find myself accenting those, so they're going along. Um, I tend to be something like that. But the trouble with following the lyric or the libretto, the language, the chant, they're not going to hit on those machines. They're going to be someplace else. So it's a little bit irregular, let's say. This next one is one of my favorites, Ukyo Zanmai. Precious near the Mahdi. Where do we go at 8:30? Go at 8:30 tonight? There.
8:05.
It's all about after 8. I set this one to music and it comes out kind of like a country western. We'll do it on the feet. Wonder if we have to flick my through screen interfere.
Ukyo Zammai. So
Enter Bluetooth. Wait for connection. Bluetooth.
Larry says you can add all this stuff on.
Makes more sense if you can cast hexagrams in the I Ching.
If you do what?
It refers to the I Ching
Yeah, yeah,
from Taoism.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you understand what the hexagram is talking about. But it's almost like every other line is a colon. Penetrate the source, travel passively. Yeah, that's a cultural reference. I've looked at the King myself a little bit. And, um, I'm not sure how helpful that would be to actually know what he is referring to, or whereof he speaks. But when he gets to so minute an inches where there is no gap, through the cause and condition, times the serene and illuminating, these are actually descriptive of his experience. So vast it transcends dimension. Yeah, Alice in Wonderland thing. Why did it cookie get big? Why does cookie get small? We don't actually know how big anything is. For everything that is large, there's something smaller, and something larger, small, there's something smaller, something larger, and so forth. Notice now they're suddenly gradual. So this Huinan was the sudden school, and he was six patriarch in China. So this is way down the road from Huinan, but that's how strong the influence was tearing down suddenly gradual schools in which teachings and approaches arise. With teachings and approaches distinguished, each has its standard, but a lot of these have written, but from where the teachings and approaches are mastered or not, reality constantly flows. So what all of these teachings are pointing at is reality. The reality constantly flowing, never the same, always changing. So to try to concretize or text in concrete these teachings as meaning one kind of thing is futile attempt. The pilot line, although it is not constructed, it is not beyond words, like facing the person's mirror form and reflection before each other. She thinks that's wonderful use of language. People on what form and reflection mean. Um, reflection is often used by Nicholas Locke, who came up with the empirical method, that John Locke, which philosopher was, but he talked about the empirical method as being data that we take in through our senses. He said there's another side of it that he referred to as reflection, which is where you go back over that same data again and again. Um, and when it becomes neurotic, it's what's called rumination. Out in the thread, you can't get it out of the loop. But reflecting upon our experiences, allowing the analytical mind to play its role in discernment and helping to differentiate between what we generally refer to as delusion and reality. Rejection here, the form is the appearance of the world. And Taoism says so. Caught by desire, we see only the manifestation. Free from desire, we confront the mystery. I think the mystery is the can to the emptiness, the underlying, investability. The form and the appearance can create coherent tag. The Buddha taught that we impose the mind, impose the false stillness on it. So all of this implies a kind of mental breakdown, a kind of perceptual breakdown. We go through in order to start seeing what they're talking about. Well, it's just been the last 15 minutes in the Q&A. Next time we do chanting, we'll go into Dogen. It's a lot more dense.
Reference what you were just speaking of. It's basically we're prisoners of the present. To reference what you just spoke of, like we're basically prisoners of the present.
Even in the revenues. Finger, so you can't really be imprisoned by it.
Yeah.
But I would say we're imprisoned by our interpretation.
That's the dichotomy mind. It's always attempting nothing. Always attempting to place it in this box or that box.
I found there were two cases in the transmission over the Bodhidharma and Weka, where Weka said something like, mine, mine was etheric. Um, the English translation. And Bodhidharma said, show me this mind. He said, when I look for it, I can't find it. And Bodhidharma said, there, I pacified your mind. And that was enough to trigger profound insight, awakening, wake up. Wake up was the one that supposedly cut it arm off, show sincerity. And then Weka and Sangsan, same exchange happened, same kind of exchange. And his professor said his mind was bound. He was bound. That's something holding him back. He asked him, what is it that binds your mind? And that was enough to trigger an awakening because he could see nothing was binding. So we have these opinions that we're imprisoned in the present, but that's an interpretation. So somebody would be drawn in their understanding of the Dharma, but the table at the back of the apartment, like we're talking about, so that's just your opinion. We have to look at everything as just our opinion. And so, as this idea of attachment, non-attachment, Buddhism, give up your attachment to the world. I don't think that's what Buddhism teaches. Give up your attachment to your opinion that, mothers and fathers want to be free, anxiety about their children. Too bad. You're in for it. If you give up your opinion to that, you can see. Okay. Practice is not about avoiding suffering, but it's running it. Okay, we're going to go around the room. I'm calling you out. Nick.
I was thinking, sort of like reading these all for the first time. Say, what would you suggest someone do to sort of dive into these deeper and sort of try to understand more?
Well, if you're, I'm a big proponent for memorization. And one reason is we don't do it anymore. We have so many ready references at hand. We can go to we have the biggest library in history through Google, through the internet. And that's never been the case before. So I think in the oral tradition, as I said, you had to go there and listen. If you wanted to learn them, you had to participate. You had to chant along with the others until finally you started memorizing it. So I think we lost something. I think we lost a skill, a mental skill, you might say. You're a musician, you have to memorize a lot of music. And you get to the point that you're playing a classical piece, right? You don't even have to think about it. Right? So you still have that particularly because you're a classical musician.
Mm-hmm.
But I think most of the culture does not. We don't. In law, you have to memorize certain things. With medicine, you have to memorize certain things. I'm not sure. So I think what it does is in your case, it may not be that important because you're already doing that with music. All it may give you is a little edge. And I recommend that people memorize a short piece like the Samurai. And you go over it, print it, put it in your pocket when you're in traffic, pull it out to get through it. My brother taught people how to, he taught classical musicians as well as jazz, and he specialized in teaching musicians who could play with quotation, but they couldn't play without it. And he taught them how to just play the instrument. And it's that. And teaching people how to memorize music, I don't know if you've run across this or not, he'd have them memorize the last measure first. He measure before that, and then he'd go backwards, backward, first little piece. So that way you're not lost. At any point you can go all the way to the end. I started doing that with these. I started memorizing the last stanza and the stanza before that. Go all the way to the end. Stanza before that. All the way to the end. So, can we try that? The chanties started. I memorized most of this. I don't trust myself to remember it when I'm leading the class, but I chant these when I'm walking. I chant them when I'm swimming. I do the backstroke, so I can chant while I time my laps by how long it takes me to go. But in traffic, if you're really under a lot of stress, if you just start chanting one of these things, it'll just end with everything.
And then kind of, I guess you were kind of saying this earlier, like the being familiar with it and sort of the meaning itself is revealed to you by sort of being familiar with it enough so that it's like memorized.
And like the three Chinese ones, the one for 600 is like 2 pages in this format. The one for 700 is sound up right, and that is 1 page. And the first and 16 is 3 pages. In the Thunderfly, it's only 1 page. And the book of Allen is 2 pages. They're hundreds apart, but just one is very long, one is very brief, one is in between. Once you've got these memorized, you start hearing the connections between them. In the two later teachers had to be aware of thinking me. Or the Sangha had to be aware of thinking me. So it's almost like text and commentary. He's adding the commentary because they're very similar. And then Hozan was the Ko and Soto's and yes, Hokyo Dhamma, he had to be aware of both the other people. So when you got them all memorized and they're all in your mind, you're chanting through one, you're hearing resonances of the others. He said this way, and he said that way. I'm saying the same thing. Or pointing at the same. You see that in music? Do you like it? If you're doing Brahms, you get connection between various pieces of Brahms.
Definitely, or even, referencing other composers, It's like, it's like done directly, but stylistically. I mean, it's all like,
Do you ever think that they're like, what do we call it now? Sampling?
yeah.
They definitely do. Like they'll pick up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as like an example, it's like, Beethoven is kind of held up as like, it's, amongst kind of, symphonic composers. So it's like in a way, it's like every kind of like major composer is somehow responding to Beethoven, and whether it's like by kind of not directly referencing it, but doing something similar or doing something different as to be like, this is not.
I'll see you that 4 measures and raise you this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My dad once said you can't compose. I think he said 4 notes in a row that haven't been done before.
Yeah.
Now that this keeps getting longer, it's 8 notes and 12, 16. Who knows how many notes it is now? can't find a unique pattern of modes that hasn't been published before.
That's mathematically though, that you don't have to get very far. 16, huge numbers.
Yeah.
So there's so many, amount of different tone combinations you could come up with is just literally astronomical, more than the number of particles in the universe, that sort of thing.
What's that formula called? I can't remember the name of it. That you get more, if the power of 4.
And it's exponential.
Any comment tonight from you, Bill?
I was struck by and I know think you brought this up another time, but the E hit the mark at 100 paces when the arrows meet head on. Could it be a matter of skill?
And the in another place, it says one of the other existing phenomenon like Boston cover joining, according with principles like arrow points meeting. So when arrows meet head on, according with principles like arrow points meeting, they're saying the same thing. It's the existing phenomena like Boston cover joining, everything we know how to do. How to.
What's the term you're using?
Said cover.
Boston cover joining. Existing phenomena like Boston cover joining, according with principle like arrow points meeting. Those are comparison of relative knowledge or relative ability to control an environment. And arrow points meeting is something almost impossible. So
The box and cover mean one inside the other.
Yeah, we can make a box and we can make a cover that joins, right? And it fits and it works. And a lot of things are like that. You look this way. But according with principle like arrow points meeting is when form and emptiness come together and we see the whole picture. It's nearly impossible. Arrow points meeting. How could it be a matter of skill? You hit the mark at 100 paces, but when arrows meet head on, how could it be a matter of skill? You can't shoot an arrow at me and I can aim an arrow and hit that arrow. It might happen.
Accident.
The probability of an accident, that's the inevitable result of immutable physical law. Before two arrow points come head to head, basically stop each other in midair. That's impossible. Ian, how about you?
It may not be important, but next time I'm going to explicate the hexagram fire over fire.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was interested in that comment.
I think I have about 12 different translations of UJ.
We've got, I think, a couple in the library. We'll be interested in hearing these. I think we should move on to Dogen next time, but we can always go back over these. I've gone over these again and again and again and memorizing it. So that most of it's music. David.
Hey, nice. I thought you would go to Daniel first.
Good job, sorry.
I'm not like bring up what I mentioned previously when I said prisoners of the present. Basically, what I was basically describing is that the brain exists in a state of rapid inference. So it's like constantly looking, it's constantly assimilating information. That's basically what I meant. The here and now, like what's going on right now.
I'm not sure everybody would agree with you because the rumination part, the reflection part means that you fantasize or you go back over memory or you go into, you go through the material again if you're doing research, so forth. When I was in research, we didn't have computers at the time. We had typewriters. That's how we wrote up the reports. And so we bought cheap towel paper, which is very flat. And we hang it on a roll and down right above the typewriter, feed the sheet into the typewriter. type, earphones on, listening to the group and so forth, again and again and again, repetition. And because what happens is we're using our mind as the computer, basically, the brain. And you listen to hundreds of hours of paper on a given subject for a client, focus groups, individuals, or whatever, and patterns begin to emerge. But they don't come out in a linear fashion. You'll be talking along, you're listening to, having something that you think is important, you listen to the tape, and something happens, you oh, it's important, but this has nothing to do with where I'm at right here. It's space, 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 space. You type that in. Right? So afterwards, we'd take these long rolls of typed paper and pull them apart with scissors. You know, our studio, our office was all pinboard wall. The whole wall was pinboard. You pin them up together and put the things that went together. You pull the whole pile down. You take this apart and sequence it, put it all back together, and give it to the secretary. So we're basically doing a room-sized word processor, essentially. It's what it is. The way your mind works is like not linear. So, well, it can be. It can be linear, but not necessarily. So we have to allow for that process to happen in our in our meditation. So the principle that we're stuck in anywhere is really just an interpretation.
I mean, it's the kind of default position of the monkey mind, because it's constantly swinging from this branch to the next one. But we can't get out of it.
Yeah, the intuitive side of the mind can break free, so to speak. If you're sitting in, when you go to sleep, you go into hypnagogic states, half awake, half asleep. Very liberating to the mind. The mind becomes, that's where dreams, I think, come from. And you find yourself falling into those states since I was in as well. That's why I recommend keeping a notepad, because some eureka event may happen and you want to be able to jot it down, not forget it. Emmanuel, you're the last.
Um, I remember last time we did the chanting, you mentioned like your voice starts at one pitch and you
Yeah.
taper it off or taper it down. Is that something you consciously do, or is it just
I
natural?
do, but it's because I discovered it. It wasn't conscious at first. But start out chanting, you know, heart of great perfect wisdom. So it's usually in tune with that. You strike this bell and you do a bow. You strike it in, do a bow. The vibration enters your head, enters your chest. You're sort of vibrating at the same rate. So when I hit that first tone, it's generally the dominant tone that you hear here. And as I said, I think that's an E. And so the first tone comes in, Great Heart of Wisdom Sutra. And then as you're chanting along, it's even more and more strained to stay at that level. So, keep hands right. But your voice can drop. And so I've become aware of that. And when I start another stanza, I'll typically let my voice drop a third or whatever. It's still in harmonic. You go on. But the vocal cords are relaxing and relaxing and relaxing as you go through the chant. Some people haven't learned that. And you hear some people reading the sutra here, and they keep that same high pitch all the way through. And by the end, their voices are extremely strained.
I think it's gonna be flat.
You think that they
Yeah,
Or you have perfect pitch?
yeah.
Tell if it's any different when we hit the big stick. It's more overtones.
There's a bunch of notes there, isn't there?
Well, yeah, there's probably a lot. I'm just thinking what I'm
Like
hearing.
the fundamental.
At least two.
I don't know. It's different now. That is an E. Yeah. Okay.
You hear the what? You hear the wave,
So that's the
Oh,
E.
the wobble.
the wobble. That's where you want to strike it. So now the overtones come out.
Does that help with the timing? Like whenever you do the bows, does it help with the timing when you do the bows? Is there a specific pattern that people use for that?
For which part of the bounce?
Well, like when we do like for the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha,
Hmm.
is there a timing based on that
Yeah,
that
pretty
you
much.
do?
It's like, yep, the Dawn watches the Doshi because the Doshi's going back to do the bows, and depending on the size of the room,
Mm-hmm.
that will last longer. And so you watch the Doshi, and when the Doshi is getting ready to do the bow, first one is at the altar. You're watching, or you try to hit on the same thing. He goes down, he's coming up. If they have a bowing cloth, they're putting it down, it takes longer. So I try to, coordinate both.
Why do they do two at the end?
I really don't know. Maybe it's so the Doshi knows it's done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really clear that you get to the point where did we do the refuges 3 times? Or did we do it 2? So I think all of those things all of these techniques have been developed to help you just be completely mindless when you're going through this. You don't have to think or know anything. Signals trigger you. Okay, 8:35.